Welcome back to 8 Cubes. We have a ton to talk about today. As always, I'm KMBest. He's Lambie's series, and we're going to start with Shou Lao, the most impactful Season Pass card in probably about 6 months, which is causing all sorts of discourse because I think people forgot that Season Pass cards could be good. This is a 5/8 that gives +3 power for every turn you have played 2 or more cards to whatever character you played before Shou Lao. This is and has been a very powerful card. As with most buffers, the key thing about it is figuring out a way to take that buff and multiply it multiple times. So a lot of what you see with Shou Lao is, I would like to take Shou Lao and multiply the buff with Maverick or multiply the buff with Scarlet Spider. That's really a lot of what this deck is doing, which is good, interesting, powerful. I also think that it's important to talk about this deck in the context of it being a thing that is not fully developed. This is an archetype that we haven't gotten the best 12 cards for. There's a lot of different theories on how to play the deck right now, whether it be the activate versions of the deck or the versions of the deck that are focusing more on doubling it with Prodigy and Grandmaster, or the versions of the deck that are focused heavily on disruption with things like Copycat and Cable and Iceman and Spider Ham, all aimed at making sure your opponent doesn't get their Shou Lao. Largely, my instinct on this card is it is pretty clearly very powerful. It is in a tier with, I would say, 3 season passes that have been nerfed and 1 that hasn't. Iron Patriot, Sam Wilson, Mr. Fantastic First Steps, and Merlin. I think it's very clearly in that tier as a relative outlier. But it remains to be seen what level of problem this card is once people understand the texture of the deck. And largely the question I want to throw at Lambie here is, in your experience in card games, to me, it feels like there's a couple of ways this goes. One is the deck gets figured out and it actually gets better and they definitely have to nerf it. And the other is the deck gets figured out and people understand how to start playing against it and it sort of skates on getting nerfed the way Merlin did. Which of these do you consider like a more likely outcome for this card at this point?
So Shou Lao is very interesting of a card because by Marvel Snap standards, when a card gets released, usually there's like a best build within like the first 2 days, right? This card doesn't actually have one yet, you know. And the funny thing is, firstly, we thought this was gonna be a Werewolf Merlin card, right? Clearly, it's not really doing its best in Werewolf Merlin. It's doing its best in like other things right now. So this card hasn't actually been solved yet, which is by Marvel Snap standards quite a while already, which is very interesting, right? So I'm actually very curious to see how this develops. But I do think that this card is more in the category. I don't think it's as flexible and abusable and as gonna be able to be widely played as like pre-nerf Sam Wilson. Like, you remember we mentioned the tiers of like battle pass cards that are like at that level, right? I think this is like a little bit below pre-nerf Sam Wilson. I think pre-nerf Sam Wilson was like the beast, it was just the beast, right? So this is just like a little bit lower. I think this card, my opinion and my first thought is that even if the best build gets figured out, it's gonna be like, okay, it gets figured out and then we can counter it. I don't think this is an unbeatable good card, you know. I know why it's good though. Like, as in, like, maybe we can talk about this later eventually in the SK versus Shao topic. But like, I know why this is a good card. TLDR it splits power very well. Like, it splits like significant amount of power very well and very evenly, you know. So I think that's one of the biggest reasons it has that it's good. But that being said, I still think once eventually the so-called best 12 is figured out, it's not gonna be like unbeatable best 12 because it's just like it's like a fair, okay, not fair amount of points. It's like a good amount of points, but it's not like obscene combo levels of points whereby it's just like uninteractable and unbeatable. So I don't think it's gonna be that big of a problem.
Yeah, I think it's like a bunch of points for a very small amount of energy investment. Like, that's largely what's happening here. The card it reminds me of the most really isn't any of those season pass. Yeah. The card it reminds me the most of is Invisible Woman First Steps. That's what this feels the most like, where it's like every time you would play Invisible Woman First Steps in the Invisible Woman First Steps deck, should be like floor 315 ceiling combo that wins you the game. And that's sort of what this card feels like right now. I think that like that's kind of the space I have it in my head, where it's like it's definitely like a little too strong. I just think that people are acting like you can't beat it in a way where it's like, no, I mean, this stuff is probably too good in terms of like the numbers this card does are too much for the energy. But people are sort of acting like it's like, oh my God, my opponent plays Mr. Negative on me every time. You know what I mean? Like
it's not that.
It's not that, but it is really good. The other thing that I want to highlight about Shou Lao is that it's obviously good enough that we're talking about it before we talk about the week's card, which is Lin Lie. But another thing that's going on here is just the new card came out, and if you ask me what the other decks are that can actually compete with them, I've got like two answers for you. The first is Victoria Hand, which everyone is bored of. And the second is the Iris Move deck, which I think, frankly, is just really hard to play. So when you take those factors into account, I don't think it's a surprise to see this deck be like pretty overrepresented, even though it is strong. The other thing is, when you talk about it not fitting in Werewolf Merlin shells, I think what we're seeing there is it being strong enough to justify being the thing you build around rather than being a complementary piece. Like Shou Lao is the centralizing piece of those decks rather than showing up and helping your Merlin Werewolf stuff. It's actually like you play Merlin to justify Shou Lao. You don't do that for Werewolf anymore. That's what you're doing. You're doing Shou Lao deck building. And I think that's a really interesting development as well, because the synergy between the two is not nearly as clean as I would have expected.
Yeah, I mean, I really think this card, okay, we talked about the fact that it's like an above average 5, right? And then that's why it's good. I feel like every card that is quote unquote we think it's good is always gonna be an above average for its stat cost, right? So this is just another good card. Like it's like you said, it's not like someone slams Mr. Negative on you. So
it is a lot better than every other 5 in the game. Like, I also think that like Shou Lao is a shower where Sam Wilson is a grower. Like, you don't understand all the things Sam Wilson does just by looking at the card or by having it played against you. You don't notice all the extra power it's giving. You don't notice all the weird synergies it has with everything, right? With Shou Lao, you see the number like 15 go onto the board, and you're like, "Oh my God, this is busted!" Right? Like it is very easy to understand what makes this guy strong. Normally, we start every week talking about the cards that are coming out in the next week, and this is the one week we made an exception, but we're still going to get to it immediately. Lin Lie, a 2/2 with an on reveal that summons the Sword of Fuxi to a different location. The sword is also a 2/2 with an ongoing that gives Lin Lie +7 power if the two are at the same location. This feels like a card that goes in one of the two decks that I think is at least threatening to your average Shou Lao deck, which is the Iris Move deck, the Madam Web, Craven, Batroc, Sam Wilson mid-rangey pile. A very powerful deck in its own right. In the Snowball Showdown, Cougar got second place with a bad version of the deck, and I say bad version of the deck in the sense that he was forced to play Shou Lao because of the rules of the Snowball Showdown and very explicitly did not want to play Shou Lao Kitty, and he still got second place in a field of entirely people who did want to be playing Shou Lao. The deck is better outside of the context of that. And it is already a deck that I think is genuinely on that same level as the Shou Lao lists right now. Maybe that'll change. But this is a card that seems like it'd be pretty good for this. It could maybe be a move bounce card. Like if you're bouncing Lin Lie and then replaying him, that seems like a pretty cool thing to do. Get multiple Swords of Fuxi so Lin Lie gets extra points on him. You could maybe Frigga him. I don't know how that works exactly, but there's cool things to be done there potentially in move bounce. I think this card maybe has a home in Move Bounce and probably has a home in the Iris mid-range deck, if I had to guess.
I think this is a good card, man. Like, so obviously, if you don't move or replay the Lin Lie in the same location as the sword, right? It's not gonna do much. But if you do, which is the whole point of the card, it's like 211, right? It's something like a 211, which is a lot.
211,
and that whole idea with like bouncing it to get more swords. Then it's a 218, is it?
Well, if you get more swords, it would actually, I guess if you want to be nice about it, it's like a 220, right? Because the sword is a 2/2 itself, right? Like if you want to count it like that, like if what you do is you play Lin Lie, then you play Lin Lie again and the sword goes in the same location, you bounce Lin Lie for a third time, you put him in that location, he will have 20 power.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. The decks that do bounce stuff do it very easily, and this is a cheap card. So I think this is actually pretty good, right? 220, like that's insane. 220, and then at the same time, it's like, how should I put it? It's not green power, it's ongoing, right?
It
So
doesn't get
it's
Shadow
not
King.
counted
That's how you can put it.
exactly.
Like,
And
yeah.
it's insane, right? Like, I mean, obviously it does get Enchantress, but like that's a whole thing for another day. But it's not gonna get Shadow King, and it's a 220 in a bounce deck potentially. I think this guy is good, man. Like, I'm actually more optimistic on this than when I first saw the card, because I realized when you mentioned the bounce thing, then I was like, okay, this makes a lot of sense.
I got that from Sizer, who like I don't
Typical,
know
it's
how
Sizer
yeah,
and
like I don't know
bounce.
how seriously to take it, right? Because it's like, oh yeah, like guy who only sees nails suggests that a hammer might be a good fit. You know what I mean? That's the move bounce guy. Of course he looks at this card and he's like, I can play it in move bounce, right? Like it's
Okay,
like
wait, hold up. You know why this is also sick? Sorry, I just had to interrupt that. I realized
sure.
you can bounce the first sword as well. So you
Yes.
can replay the whole
You
thing
can get
in
it all.
anywhere
Yeah.
you want it to be. So sick. Actually, I kind of like this.
I think there's
Yeah.
something to be said for this. I just don't know if it actually plays out in practice the way you want it to in theory. But like, I just think the important thing about this card is like, I've been known to be down on like a 2-8, right? Like you go through some deck building effort and you get a 2-8. I'm like, that's honestly not enough, right? But if you go through some
Mm-hmm.
deck building effort and you get a 2-11, it's like suddenly we're talking about a much better payoff for what you're
Yeah.
actually doing, right?
And I think that the decks that like can easily make it a 211 can also just as easily make it the 218, 220 that we are talking about, you know? It's like the same
I
deck that does it as
wonder.
easily.
I don't think I think move bounce, yes, but I also think just like the Iris
Yes.
deck is only ever going to play this as a 211, but also that's a
Yeah,
deck
of
that
course.
has basically like that deck is founded on 211s, right? Its whole thing is like Sam
Mm-hmm.
Wilson, Batroc, Craven. It would love another one of those. It is so happy to
Mm-hmm.
have just another thing that's just like, here's
And
a bunch of points. Like it definitely does want that.
the most underrated thing, which is obviously less stats, but it's also things that I used to love to do, is you can just not move the card. And then it's kind of interesting. You can just not move it, sacrifice 7 power, but you win a location because your opponent thinks you're gonna gain the 7 power. It's just like a juke thing, you know.
I want to talk a little bit about how Shou Lao is, in my view, and I'm not sure this analogy is perfect, but he is preying on the scar tissue of a metagame, which is to say,
Okay.
we have had 3 months of Shadow King just shitting on everything, just absolutely dominating everything. And you look at Shou Lao and you're like, Shadow King has to be good against this, right? If you're playing Maverick and Scarlet Spider, I want to be Shadow Kinging this. The problem is he's actually terrible against that card because
Yeah.
in there when they're doing their Maverick, Scarlet Spider, whatever it is, Maverick, Scarlet Spider, Jocasta, all that stuff, all they're doing is throwing priority, chucking all of that in one lane, and then 30 power of green power comes down without priority thanks to Shou Lao. Like, if they've done their job properly, they don't have priority, which means your Shadow King just sits there and looks stupid. And also, because they're doing their thing across multiple lanes, Shou Lao Maverick, Shou Lao Scarlet Spider, your Shadow King looks even stupider. Like that is, I think, one of the things that gives me pause about people being like, this card is super busted, is I feel like they haven't even tried to do things that aren't Shadow King against it. Like that's sort of what it feels like right now. Is like, you guys realize Super Adaptoid is actually amazing against both of those payoffs? Like, if you ever try, like, because they're always throwing priority, their whole play pattern is I'm going to throw priority to dodge the Shadow King. Okay, now you don't double your power. GG, game's over. Like, there's just like, I'm not saying the card is not incredibly strong, and I'm not saying the card is not nerf worthy, but it does sort of feel like a big part of why it's so good is not just its strength, but how it is specifically positioned and how things lined up for it to punish the things that were previously good. That is
Yeah.
notable to me.
Yeah. I mean, I actually only have one thing to add on this one, which is to hone in on the whole reason why I personally think Shou Lao is like pretty insane against SK. The priority thing is one thing as well. The second, the thing I want to talk about is the natural distribution of power
Yeah.
of the card. It's like a 5/8 body, which is big enough to warrant answering, and then it puts its effect somewhere else, right? And That's the thing. Like it puts its effect somewhere else, so it splits the power very efficiently. And at the end of the day, I feel like that's one of the key reasons why the card is very good as well. Because when you invest your 5 drop, your turn 5 or 6 or whatever in a 5 drop, 5/8 somewhere else, you give a lot of power to another location. So it's like doing like double duty, you know. So I think that's a really, really important thing to think about when it comes to Shou Lao. In my opinion, because we don't even have the solved Shou Lao 12 cards yet, right? So like I feel like if we do have the solved Shou Lao 12 cards, what would be ideal in beating this like super adaptoid, for example? Yes, but it's also like once you see their max output, then you go taller. Like that's
Like that,
the
yeah.
the simple way of doing it, because that's core Marvel Snap, right? You see what the best deck does at best, and if you can do something that's above consistently, then that's the thing, you know.
Yeah, it's a lot like I don't know that this deck can do what Invisible Woman First Steps did and
It doesn't
pack.
compound like that, yeah.
Yeah, because what Invisible Woman First Steps did was also run Stardust Mobius Mercury. I don't know that Shou
And
Lao
yeah.
can afford to do that. I think at best you get like Deafening Chord and a Cosmo in there in terms of like counterplaying your opponent, which means you are going to be pretty vulnerable to like Mr. Negative or whatever. Right? Like you're just going to lose.
Yeah,
Like
for sure.
it is a lot harder to fit big chunky tech cards into a Shou Lao deck just by the nature of what Shou Lao is and does than it was
Yes.
with that Invisible Woman. And I think that largely, if I had to guess, and I might get killed for this take, I think that sort of peak Shou Lao is going to be a worse deck than peak Invisible Woman was. I think that if we were to like look at those two relative to their metagame, we would say peak Invisible Woman was a stronger deck. And I just don't think, not that Shou Lao, again, not that it's not nerfable, not that it's not incredibly powerful, but I do think that like within the last 6 months, we've seen a deck that is probably better than this. And a lot of that is down to the ability of that deck to have a similar level of point output with a bunch of tech cards built in. And I just don't know that Shou Lao has that same ability. That would be the thing that would push me over the edge on it, by the way. If it was able to just like counter all those big guy decks, I'd be like, oh, okay, you got to get rid of this.
Yeah, no, I agree, by the way. I really think Shou Lao is just one of those like big point output decks that isn't too over the top. Like it's a lot, but it's not like unbeatable amounts, you know. Like, I agree with that.
Yeah. If anything, though, the thing that would protect it is just those decks being bad.
Yeah, inconsistent compared to this, correct.
Now, contrary to what you might imagine, other cards did come out last week. One of them was Majestic Wingbeat, which I actually think is a pretty solid little one-cost skill. A lot of it is that this card is just generally pretty solid. There's just nothing bad to say about a one-cost skill that gives something in your hand +2 and potentially discounts it as well. I don't think it's the world's greatest card, but I do want to highlight one use case for this card that I think is almost certainly going to be a place where it is going to be forever. And I'll give you a bonus one too. Use case number 1, this card goes in every Mockingbird Sasquatch Mysterio deck for the rest of time because it hits Mockingbird Sasquatch Mysterio. It hits Mockingbird Sasquatch. It hits Mysterio. You're happy to discount Mockingbird Sasquatch. You love that. You're happy to buff Mysterio. You love that. For the end, till the end of time, this card goes in there, doesn't take up board space. That deck is really threatened on board space, is a cheap card for you to play for Sasquatch. All of those things, A+, 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 A+. The other place it goes for sure is Zombie Galacti, which is a reasonable, like, I have a take on Zombie Galacti, which is I think it is better than Living Tribunal. If you're going to play one of those decks, I would play Zombie Galacti. That is my take.
Why? What is the take? I mean, like, I wanted to say some stuff about Wingbeat, but I think you mentioned it all already. I kind of just want to hone in on the Galacti thing because it's more interesting.
I think the Galacti deck is a lot better than people give it credit for, which gives it a sort of inherent advantage in that people see the Galacti and they're like, I could never lose to this, and they play like apes. Everyone knows when you're playing Living Tribunal, you are playing probably the most face-up deck on the planet.
Yeah, oh my god,
everyone knows what's happening, right?
Face up.
Nobody knows what's happening with Zombie Galacti because they've never played against the deck before. Like, they just haven't done it. They don't know what they're supposed to be doing in the matchup. And frankly, I think the power output's actually kind of decent. The biggest thing that I have against Zombie Galacti is that it kind of has to be a magic deck, which I feel like is basically untenable in Merlin land. But
Yes.
outside of that, like Tribunal also has to be a magic deck. So like I don't really see the problem.
It doesn't
It
exactly
kinda
have to be a
does.
magic deck. No, the thing about Tribunal, this is gonna sound crazy, but I've actually like back then when there was this Tribunal, there was a period where Tribunal was quite heavily played. Like the good Tribunal players, they will do like the less power output play to just win the game. You know, they will like put less all-ins on like one location. They'll split it up a bit so like their Iron Man doesn't get hit with like the Enchantress along with everything else, that kind of thing. Like they'll just like split it up. Yeah, it's just that kind of thing. I don't know about Zombie Galacti, but I feel like Zombie Galacti feels even less flexible than Tribunal. And also this whole like don't know how to play against the deck thing. Yes, relevant, but I guess relevant until people
They
start
do,
to
yeah.
see. Yeah, until they do. It's relevant for now. But I think it's also like a negligible factor because like if you compare both decks in terms of like, let's just say you know how to play against both, I do think that maybe Tribunal still wins. I'm just speculating.
I don't actually know. Like Zombie Galacti post Maverick, post Wingbeat is actually just like kind of good at doing points. Like it's just nice with it. It just genuinely is kind of nice with it. Like it like the numbers you get to are pretty shockingly big. Honestly, the worst thing for Zombie Galacti is also the worst thing for Tribunal, which is just like you're a magic deck, and if you're not a magic deck, you actually can get outpowered by a good Shou Lao game, right? Like if you're
Yeah.
not getting that extra turn, it actually does hurt your output in a meaningful way. And the Shou Lao decks being Merlin decks that have that power output puts both of those decks in like a really awkward situation when otherwise you would think they're like pretty reasonable things to try to counter this deck with.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all just theory, right? I don't think both decks can actually exist now because we are in Merlin land.
I mean, Jwala hit rank 1 with Zombie Galacti, so I mean,
Wow.
it exists. Dragon of the Moon is better than I thought it would be. I thought this would be a 1-star card. It feels more like a 2-star card. But the real thing
Yeah.
about Dragon of the Moon that is interesting to me specifically is it's kind of shocking how good filling up the hand of a Merlin deck is. Like, these Shou Lao
Okay.
decks, the more they build around Shou Lao, the more they fall apart when they don't have Shou Lao. And they have all these cards that just like put cards in hand. And it's like, if you master mold a Merlin deck, they're kind of just sitting on risking not being able to draw cards for a decent portion of the game. Like
that's
it's
true.
like actually just kind of good. I don't think this is like an argument to play Dragon of the Moon, but like it is an argument to say that like, dude, I mean, Master Mold and Ronin are as well positioned as it is possible for Master Mold and Ronin to be right now. Like, they has never been better to be these cards, genuinely.
I'm literally talking to one person right now because there's one person that used to watch my stream a lot that loves Ronin and Master Mode, and you saying this will make him very, very happy that it's actually potentially relevant. But no, I also don't think Dragon of the Moon is. I mean, you rated 2 stars, right? I rated like, I don't know, man. It's still a 1 star for me.
I'll tell you why I rated it 2 stars. Because I took a look at cards and I was like, how many of these are worse than Dragon of the Moon? And it felt like rather than being bottom 20th percentile, it was like second from the bottom 20th percentile. It was
You
like,
really think so?
yes,
I think
dude,
this
there
card
were
is
so
very
many
bottom
cards
tier,
that I
man.
think were no, like you look at like Mad Thinker, you look at like Mole Man, you look at Fire Lord, you look at Airwalker, you look at Weapon X, and it's just like, man, I don't know.
Then it's just about changing standards, man. Because if that's the scale, then those cards to me are 0.5 and this is 1. So like,
yeah,
it's
I
just
guess,
the
yeah,
scale.
I guess, yeah.
Like, can you realistically put this at like 2 if Shou Lao is only... Shou Lao's not 5, by the way. Shou Lao's probably a 4 for me.
Shou Lao's a 5.
Out of 5?
Yes.
I think it's a 4 out of... How can, okay, wait. So what? If Shou Lao's a 5 out of 5, then he's up there with like the likes of the best cards in the game right now. You really think so?
Yeah, I do.
Hmm.
I think he's one of the best cards in the game. I mean, like I said, my comp was pre-nerf Invisible Woman. It's a 5-star card. It doesn't mean that there's not like gradations among 5-star cards, but it's just way more accurate, in my opinion, to call him a 5-star card than be like, oh, he's not perfect, so I can't give him a 5. That's what he is. Like, he's a 5. Is he the highest 5 of all time? No, he's not Loki, but like, he's a 5. That's fine. He's a Hall of Famer. He's really really damn good.
Yeah, okay. We are just on different scales because my 5 is Loki. Like that's what I'm trying to say.
For you, like a 5 has to be perfect. I just don't
meta
think
game
that.
destroyer. That's what a 5 is. This guy is not a meta game
I
destroyer.
think
He's just Undying Dragon.
I think if you are like an all-star metagame centralizer, if everything is about you, if we open an episode talking about you, you're a 5-star card. I'm sorry. Like, that's just like,
okay, fine.
Are you the highest of 5-star cards? No, but it's way more accurate, I think, to describe him as a 5-star card than be like, well, he's not Loki. You know what I mean? Speaking of Invisible Woman First Steps, I have been shockingly impressed with Lockheed in the deck, which I think is not necessarily about Lockheed and more about the card he replaces, Bruce Banner. But you finally just have like enough cards that say end of turn on them that you're not just Thena Havocing, right? You have this card, you have, I mean, Sunspot was already in the deck, but you have even like Adam Warlock has been a card where it's like, I don't think this card is good, but it does actually work with Invisible Woman First Steps. And you will gain like, I don't know, 8 points of power on the guy or 6 points of power on the guy or whatever. It's not good. But again, Lockheed is one of those where it's like, there are now, but with Lockheed and Adam Warlock added to the deck to go along with Hydra Bob and to go along with Black Cat, a lot of Fantasticar targets. Like, this is now a deck where it's like the Fantasticar stuff is good, the Invisible Woman First Step stuff is good. You just actually have a full deck of this synergy now. You have a full deck of things that actually work with this effect. And that's not to say like Lockheed's the greatest card ever or whatever. It's like a fine card. But in that deck specifically, it's like that deck really calls out for a card that just functionally does something with an end of turn trigger. Every end of turn trigger that's cheap and does something repeatable. You are just into that. Like, I've lost to final turn Lockheed Sunspot on the Invisible Woman deck. It's like, yeah, you know, like those aren't as good necessarily as Thena Havoc, but they are still good. And just having all of those and not having to run Bruce Banner and his worthless, in my opinion, bugged ass. It's a big upgrade.
Yeah, I mean, essentially what you're saying and what I kind of agree on is it's not like this is a good card. It's just that it makes the deck have proper cards, right? It's just that the deck can play. I mean, you can have a proper deck right now. I get it. Which I guess means it does fill a sort of a role, right? Like it's not completely dead on arrival kind of thing. Like it arrives in the game at a time whereby it can be played. So I guess that's fine. I still don't think it's an amazing card, but like I think it's like
It's not.
It gives a deck like properness. Like it's a proper deck now. I don't know if that's the
It's
word.
a value over replacement thing, right?
Yes.
The value over replacement of this card is huge because the card you're replacing is Bruce Banner, who sucks.
It's horrible.
It's a big deal.
But Bruce Banner probably wins you more 8 cubers, though. Let's just put it that way.
I disagree. I have a theory that Bruce Banner is bugged with repeated Invisible Woman triggers. That's my theory. I don't think
let the conspiracy theories begin.
I
Let's
believe
hear
this.
it.
I fully believe this. I don't think he properly responds.
Bro, I'm not trying to say that you're wrong, but like this is one of those discussions where people say that like, oh, every time I swap my deck to another deck, I meet the counter. Every time I swap back, I play. This is such a thing, man.
It is identical in form to those conversations, and I realize you are legally allowed to clown on me for this. But I swear to God, I have seen more Bruces not go off with multiple Invisible Woman triggers than I have seen Bruces go off.
Yeah, I need to make the Reddit thread saying that.
Swear to God.
I think my Bruce Banner
is bugged, and then everyone on Reddit yells at me, and then it turns out I'm right. Speaking of a guy that cheats big things into play,
this
Dragon
is a very
Lord.
good card. Sorry, carry on.
Go ahead. I mean, just take it. Dragon Lord.
No, I just wanted to do this for fun. Okay.
5/5. Put a card from your hand into play. That's what he says. That's what he does. Lambie thinks this card is busted good.
Yes, this card is busted good. And KM doesn't think so, but I will try and shed light on this. Okay, so 5 mana, 5/5 Dragon. On review, put a card from hand here. I didn't even go very far in terms of theory crafting. I just went one direction, which is ramp, right? So in ramp, if you play this, you skip then your 4 cost to play a 5 in ramp every single time anyway. So this is a 5. You play this, and often enough, because your deck is stacked with 5s and 6s, you spawn a free 5 or a 6. Now, obviously, you don't want to spawn certain 5s, right? You don't want to spawn like your Cosmic Ghost Rider. You probably don't want to spawn Enchantress. You might cut Enchantress, I don't know. But if you spawn a free 6, it is done on that location. You are done on one location, in theory, by turn 4, which is kind of nice, you know? So I really think this card in ramp lets you have like a free 6 drop. Even if you low roll and hit a free 5 drop, like, is it really bad? Like, it's just so free 99, man. Like, that's my pitch for literally just in ramp. I haven't thought about it in anywhere else yet, but so that's my pitch. Get the card. I like it.
I'll tell you my worry. My
Okay.
worry is this card takes ramp from being a good points and interaction deck
Mm-hmm.
into being a bad points deck.
Okay.
Like, it makes you, oh, I'm Mr. Negative, but you don't have Mr. Negative point output. And you lose out on
True.
Enchantress, you lose out on Cosmic Ghost Rider, you're doing all this other stuff. I worry that while it might increase the overall points in the deck, will make the deck a worse deck in terms of how it lines up. Now, it might be what the deck has to do in a Shou Lao world. Maybe it has to be a points deck. Maybe that's a good thing. I'm not saying this card is guaranteed bad, but I am saying that I think people are like missing a bit about what makes ramp good. Because what makes ramp good right now is that it has this interactive stuff in addition. And like when I look at the ramp deck, I'm like, okay, first of all, I don't want to pull stuff out of my hand because I'm a chamber deck. Second of all, I don't want to pull Ebony Maw. I really don't want to pull Ebony Maw. Third of all, I actually only run like 2 6-drops, and it's Cosmic, and it's Galactus First Steps and the Infinite. I'd love to pull those, but I only run 2 of them. There's more non-things that I want to pull than there are good ones. So what this means is I probably have to change the deck. I want to play more 6-drops. Maybe I'm doing Nick Fury Isan. I don't know. I'm doing something, right? And it's costing me the tech.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So you mentioned one thing which I really agree on. I would say it's like maybe in a Shou Lao world, you need to take the risk and like get some more free points on the board.
Yeah.
You know, that's what
Possible.
I'm thinking. Yeah, but at the same time, I also feel like the risk. Okay, maybe because I'm very like attuned to rolling with the RNG. Like I would really be allowing myself to take the risk if it's just like the upside is so high, right? Like if the upside is just randomly dropping a 6 here and then you win the lane, I might take it. At the same time, if you randomly drop like your Enchantress into this location as a 5/8 for free, you might not be using it to clear an ongoing, but you are dropping a 5/8 onto the board for free, you know. So there's like ups and downs, that kind of thing. I don't know. This is just in theory because I haven't even played with the card or seen the card yet, but like this just sounds cool to me.
Finally, I guess I just want to talk a little bit about nerfs. Obviously, people are talking a lot about Shou Lao, and they're like, oh, we got to nerf the card. And I guess I'm not saying you don't need to nerf it, but what I am saying is I think it would probably be irresponsible game management for them to nerf it immediately. And I think it would be irresponsible game management for them to go really hard on it too. I think that it's a bit wild to me that people look at this Shou Lao stuff and they're like, wow, this card is so good. It's making Scarlet Spider playable. We're playing Scarlet Spider, Iceman, and Spider Ham. We don't even know what the best version of this deck is. Let's immediately kill it 8 days into it existing. Like, I feel like that logic doesn't hold up. I think people want to be early to being right. And I do think this card is going to eventually get nerfed. And I think a lot of the incentive for people to talk about it in this way is so that they can say, I said it was going to get nerfed 2 weeks ago, right? That I'm smarter than them. I think that's like a real thing. And I think that it's probably correct to say this card needs to be nerfed. But it's probably incorrect that it needs to be nerfed before we A, figure out what the best deck for it is, or B, figure out what to play against it. We haven't done either of those things yet. And it just sort of feels like I do think they could reasonably nerf it. For me, what I would do, I've got a couple of suggestions. 5/6 is probably the easy one. but one that I saw that I really liked was making it say only characters. So that way you can't do this Merlin crap anymore, because
Yeah.
I feel like it's almost criminal we've talked about Shou Lao this much without talking about Merlin. That card, I'm not going to say it's a Merlin merchant, but it kind of is. Like, if you were legally not allowed to play Merlin with Shou Lao, I think it would be a much differently regarded card. Like, people are really used to being able to just free roll the existence of Merlin with this stuff. If you had to like play an actually bad card like Kitty Pryde to make this card function or things of that nature, I would be a little bit concerned. I'm not saying, again, like it's the perfect solution. Maybe they play Kitty Pryde and Kate Bishop and it's just totally fine. I don't know. But like Merlin and Deafening Chord are pretty important parts of how the deck functions. I think that is undeniably true. And largely, this deck is very powerful. Like, it's clear from what this card is that it's strong. But I just don't really... I guess what I really worry about is Mr. Fantastic First Steps. When I did my like little like end of year awards thing and let people vote on it, that was voted worst Nerf. I was pretty surprised by that, because that card was busted. The card was way more busted than this. But the reason people voted it worst Nerf was overwhelmingly, as far as I could tell, because it killed the card. And I think that they need to be really careful about not doing that with Shou Lao. They need to be really careful about making sure this card is Sam Wilson and not Mr. Fantastic First Steps. And in light of that, I just think that you have to take your time with something like this, because Mr. Fantastic First Steps, I didn't realize how hurt the community was by that, really. Like, I didn't realize that it was like that level of like, you rug pulled us. We paid for this card and you killed it. And I think that's like a thing people don't feel about Sam Wilson, a thing people don't feel about Iron Patriot. And if you're going to deal with Shou Lao, I want you to make the right decisions and not the fast decisions. I want you to deal with this card in a way that does not Mr. Fantastic First Steps it.
Yeah, actually, your suggestion about the whole like Merlin spells not working with Shou Lao, like only characters thing, right? I think if you do that now, it will make the card actually very unplayable. I won't say very unplayable, but a lot
good.
Worse. No, I think it'll be a lot worse, man. Like if you cannot free roll it with Merlin spells, because it's like the thing about Shou Lao now with the Merlin is that you are already playing Merlin in the deck, and all the spells are complementary, and then all these complementary free stuff adds onto your final boss monster. So if you take away its benefit from Shou Lao's benefit from benefiting from your complementary free one-cost spells, I think it's a big difference. I mean, I don't think it's gonna be bad, but I think it's gonna be a really, really big difference. So I don't
think
think
you'll
that
notice
should
it, yeah.
be. Yeah, you'll 100% notice it in like instantly. So yeah, I agree that we probably should take our time with this card, like, because I think it's good, but it's not like giga busted broken like release Loki level kind of busted. I don't think it's that kind of card. Also, Lin Lie, I mean, Lin Lie coming out 220s, guys. Maybe play the 220 deck and maybe it's good enough, right? Like a 220 deck that cannot be Shadow King.
I don't know.
It's also a thing, so
I think Shou Lao is like, people are correctly assessing that this card is probably nerfably good. I think that is a correct assessment. I just think they're probably going too far in talking about how good it is right now. Like, I think people are sort of talking about it like it's Loki, and it's not. And people are talking about it like it needs to be Loki'd or Mr. Fantastic First Steps. It does not. This card is a numbers problem and a synergy problem. And you could solve either of those. Like, to me, I think it's worse than both release Iron Patriot and release Sam Wilson, and probably release Mr. Fantastic First Steps. And I think that the reaction to it is actually pretty surprising to me, because I think all this stuff. It could be that I'm wrong, but it also could just be that this card is more obvious in that the numbers on the board are there and people are reacting to that.
I think you're right. About that. I think that, like, because it looks obviously powerful, then they think that it's too powerful. Because it's very face up, right? It's just like bam, numbers, stats, big. But like with other busted cards, sometimes it's a bit more like, subtle. Like the Sam Wilson's bastardness to me is actually above this card because like
Oh, yeah.
despite it being like it literally enables too many things. That's what Sam Wilson is. This card is a build around, like you have to kind of build around Shou Lao. So compared to Sam Wilson, this card actually is way more inflexible of a card. It's good, but way more inflexible.
Yeah, I mean, like, I want to be super clear. I'm not saying people who think this card should be nerfed are wrong. I think they are right. I think this card will have to get nerfed at some point. But I also think that, like, the idea that they should nerf it 8 days into it being released is a bit ridiculous. Like, it's just, I don't think realistically that's good game management. I think it would just be a bad decision to do that. I do think that, like, if I were God Emperor of Second Dinner, I would be nerfing it by the patch coming out after Tuesday. You know what I mean? Like, we've got it's got like one OTA, but like if nothing changes, and I think the if nothing changes is probably the operative part of this because things could change. But if nothing changes and it maintains this profile over the next 2 weeks, I'd be like, yeah, okay, we should do something about this, right?
Yeah.
I just think that like the timeline and the time frame of this make it fairly irresponsible, even if I think it's probably gonna have to get nerfed anyway. And I don't know, like, is that bad logic? Is it bad logic to say like you should delay doing something that you think is probably correct because you want to be absolutely sure that it's correct before you take such a drastic decision? Is that a bad thing? I don't know.
Yeah, so it's a very gray area. I have a lot of discussions about this kind of things, like about like Snap and other card games as well. Like there are some things, right, that okay, so to me personally, okay, this is my personal opinion, right? If a card is just like something that the game developer overlooked to be too busted, like they somehow overlooked like an interaction or like a deck that is just like too strong, then maybe like emergency nerf or whatever. But like this Shou Lao is clearly doing what it is intended to do. Like everything it's doing right now is to me completely intended, and it's not like over the top or whatsoever. And with that being said, right, we rewind back to the top of our first topic, which is we haven't even solved the best version of Shou Lao yet. So we haven't even solved the best version of Shou Lao. Shou Lao itself is not doing things that are not expected, right? It's meant to be the powerhouse that it is. And then it's only been like what 7 days, 8 days, and then there's like stuff coming out that could be competitors to this, right? In terms of point output or whatsoever. So I think just wait a bit, right? Like wait a bit. I don't think it's wrong to say in this scenario that we should chill a bit and see how things pan out a bit. Because like we mentioned, right, this Shou Lao deck is not done. It's not even done yet. So we'll see.
I will say this. Imagine how people would react if they released Iron Man today.
Or like the exact Iron Man.
Yeah, like if Iron Man didn't exist and they were like, here's a new Series 5 card, Iron Man, and it has the text Iron Man has, and then the first time someone puts a Mystique under a Moonstone and sees it multiply by 4, they're like, holy shit. Like, it is one of those things where it's like, again, obviously this is a better card. But I do think there's something to be said for it just being really obviously strong in really obvious ways that is impacting this discussion.
Well, did Sam Wilson get like this kind of, I can't remember, this kind of reception when it was first launched in terms of like, oh my god, this is busted?
It took a little bit for us to realize the card was busted.
Because Sam is so like sneakily good.
Yes,
right?
You eventually you're like, oh, this card is really good, right? And then the more you play with it, you're like, oh no, this card is a 2/7 that comes with a free guy that activates my Cull Obsidian that gives me priority. It's just like 75 different things, right? It's just like, oh, okay, this is actually legitimately insanely messed up. But he's a grower, right? He's not a shower. Shou Lao comes out, he's a shower. You know exactly what's messed up about that card because there's a 22 power Scarlet Spider clone in your lane. You're just like, oh, this is so incredibly messed up. But I do think that is like a pretty reasonable part of this conversation. I also think that like Shou Lao is a lot better relative to 5-cost cards than Sam Wilson was relative to 2s. Just because there are really very few good 5s. Like, there are just very few good 5s in this game. All right, y'all. Bit of a long episode this time, but thank you so much for watching. As always, I've been KMBest. He has been Lamby Series. I hope I'm pointing the right direction, and he is about to take us out.
All right, I pointed in the wrong direction. But like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.